Up, guys? Mainly talking to people who are going to be tuning in after this is live because I don't think anyone's here yet. But we are hanging out here next to the Ranger on a beautiful, sunny, windy Friday at about noon right now. So hanging out by the Ranger, and finally got a new screen cover for my Garmin up here. I haven't had one on there in months. It's been really bad. I honestly don't know how I have not had that on there, but we're out here going to do a little bit of boat talk Q&A part 2. We did one a few days ago, but for some reason it cut out like I don't know, like 40 or 50 minutes in. It completely cut off and I wasn't able to go live again. Like my whole YouTube completely crashed. I don't know if anyone was here for that. So I apologize for when that happened because the whole thing crashed and I wasn't even able to film another live. It wouldn't even let me go live again. So it was pretty lame. So we're gonna give it another shot today. So I'm gonna get you guys on the tripod here. And we're gonna do a little boat talk action. So I'm gonna climb up in the boat here. So give me 1 sec. All right, here we are. Hanging out in the Ranger. So like I said, guys, I wanted to just kind of like refilm this whole deal here because the other day kind of got pretty botched. So for those of you who were here, the whole thing literally shut off like, I don't know, 40, 50 minutes in. And we weren't even able to like restart the live stream. The live stream got completely messed up. Weren't able to log back on. It was really frustrating, but it is what it is. So we're gonna give it a little second try today. Not sure who's on here, but we're just gonna give it a few minutes here, see if anyone tunes in, and then we'll kind of just go from there. But like I said in the last time we did one of these the other day, I kind of want to just make this a thing where it's like you guys can ask me questions and I can respond real time. So it makes it kind of difficult in the comment section of an actual video to go in and respond to everyone. Sometimes, you know, stuff gets in the way. I don't get back to everybody. So I wanted to just kind of make this a thing here where, you know, gives everyone a chance to drop some questions in, some thoughts, whatever, that kind of stuff, be able to actually interact with me real time. Don't know if it's going to flop or not. I don't know if anyone wants to see this. So just kind of going from there, but kind of want to give it a shot, so we'll see what happens. Let's see here. Okay, sorry guys, I'm just messing with some settings right now. Trying to get this figured out here. Okay, there we go. Mr. Scary. What is up, dude? Let's see. Do I ever go up and look for crappie? Not really, man. I really don't a whole lot. It's not really something I'm like super interested in, to be honest. Like, I'm not really a big crappie fisherman for the most part. I've caught a handful of crappie on Lake Mead by accident, but I'm just not really into it, honestly. I mean, it's a cool thing. I know a lot of guys are into it, especially like Midwest, East Coast. It's just never been something I've been super interested in, though, to be honest. They're great eating, though. I mean, it might be kind of a fun video idea if enough people wanted to see it. Drive up to Echo Bay area and do like a catch and cook type thing. That would be fun. But you know, if I'm just going out by myself, I'm always gonna choose bass over crappie. That's just kind of, that's how I'm wired, you know. So, but wondering if anyone's getting out today. I mean, it's a beautiful day. It's like high 60s. The only problem is it's kind of windy right now. I mean, probably blowing 15, 20 right now. So that's the one downside. That's what sucks about this week, man. The water's been actually warming up a little bit this week because of how sunny it's been, but it's just been so freaking windy. It's like impossible to go out and do anything. So maybe I should put the word out a day or two ahead of time. Yeah, that is the plan. I just have kind of done the last couple of these on a whim. And so moving forward in the future, I'm definitely going to give a better heads up about when the live stream is going to be and when, you know, what it's going to be about. So I understand we're not going to get a whole lot of people right now just from doing it without kind of being planned out, but it is what it is. I only ask because I chase crappie to a kajillion bucks. You should do it, man. You should do the crappie guide business. Yeah, I would not be your competition. Like I said, there's only a couple of guys who even guide out here. It's me. I'm really like the only guy that does like mainly bass fishing. I know most the other guys just mostly do like stripers, and I think one of them does like a little bit of bass fishing here and there, but I think most of the other guides out here are mostly striper fishermen. And that's not really what I do at all. I mean, if a guy wants to come out and hire me to catch stripers, I mean, sure, I'll do it. But I'd say 90% of my charters are strictly focused on largemouth and smallmouth. So, what's up, Dave? Going striper fishing tomorrow? Yeah, man, you can definitely get on some. Before I give you some advice though, I'd need a little more info. So let me know like what time of day and where you're planning on going in the lake. And also if you're gonna be fishing from shore, from kayak, from a boat. Give me kind of some more details on that, and then I can kind of tailor my advice towards that. So give me a few more deets. But anyways, guys, I've actually got a couple guided trips coming up in the near future. So I'm actually gonna rig some rods up while I talk to you guys, because I seem to always forget, and then I end up rushing when I get down to the water waiting for my customers. And then I'm down there scrambling, rigging up like 5 rods at once. So I'm just gonna do it while I'm sitting here and thinking about it, because I always forget to rig the rods prematurely, and then I end up forgetting, and then, you know, having to rush and do it down on the water. So that's just kind of what it is. If anyone has been a fishing guide before, you'll know that no matter how many things you think of, you still forget them once you get down to the water. So just gonna go ahead and rig some rods up for these upcoming trips next week or two. So that tying up, how I'm tying it up, what kind of knots I'm using, all that kind of good stuff. I'm gonna take my wallet out of my pocket though, because it's digging into my butt. That's better. But so anyways, guys, this first setup I'm going to be rigging right now is actually going to be a drop shot. So rigging up the old drop shot right now. I'm going to see I guess I can kind of just show you guys how I like to rig my drop shots this time of year. So hopefully, well, yeah, I'm sure everyone's done that before. They drop the hook and they have no idea where it landed. There it is. So this time of year with my drop shot, oh, first of all, I don't know if anyone wants to hear this, but I'm going to talk about it anyways until someone else says something. So, Mr. Scary there, fun timing guy. That other guy is dry. Chris, I can't wait for the trip either, my man. Myrna, I am the old man with the pontoon boat. Okay. There's a lot of old guys with pontoon boats, so I'm not sure specifically who you are, but I believe you. Going with my son tomorrow. Where to go is one of the questions. Where would Dad for lure? So honestly, man, so you got a pontoon boat. Stripers are really tough this time of year. Most of the stripers are gonna be like 35, 40 feet or deeper unless you find an area where they're actively eating bait closer to the surface. But for the majority of the time in the winter, the stripers are gonna be pretty deep. And so my question to you would be, if you have fish finders on your boat, you're definitely gonna wanna utilize them tomorrow. And what I would honestly recommend is just be kind of driving around at a slower speed in an area where you think there might be stripers present, and just kind of watching that fish finder, looking for those 40 and 50 foot depth ranges, and hopefully you run into a school of them. But like I said, man, the striper fishing is really, really difficult in the winter time. So, and it's funny because it's like the total opposite in the summertime, right? You can't get away from the stripers in the summertime, but come the cold water, they get really tough. So really, you kind of just have to get lucky this time of year and look for those deeper areas. Try to look for deeper. The problem with stripers is you can't really pattern them very well based off structure, because stripers don't really care about structure. They're open water fish. So the only way you're really going to find them is, you don't find the stripers by looking for the stripers. You find the stripers by looking for the stuff that the stripers eat. And so if you can find an area with bait, like I said, I would either just use your eyes or like look for birds where you think might be kind of hanging out around bait. Target that deeper water and just look for those areas with bait, and you'll probably be good. So just getting this drop shot tied up here. Right now I'm using about a 12-inch difference between my weight and my hook. So this time of year, in the summertime, I like to go a little bit taller. Sometimes I'll go like 18 inches or even 2 feet when it comes to my drop shots, the length between my weight and my hook. But wintertime, I feel like these fish on Lake Mead specifically, they hug a little bit tighter to that bottom. And so I like to use a little bit shorter length. So you can see about 12, maybe 13 or 14 inches between my hook and my weight, but not super long, right? That bait's only gonna be a little. The thing that a lot of guys forget to account for too is when you're fishing a drop shot, just because the length between your hook and your weight is that long, once that weight actually hits the bottom, there's still a lot of force going to that hook. And so that bait, even if it hits the bottom, it's gonna go boom, that hook's still gonna drop a few more inches from the force of that. And unless your line's completely tight, that bait's gonna drop a few inches deeper. So you kind of have to account for that when you're fishing a drop shot too, is realizing that distance between weight and hook is going to change once that weight's on the bottom by a few inches, depending on, you know, a certain amount of factors. So, but we're pretty much just got the drop shot rigged up now, so that thing should be good to go. But anyways, let me see here. Oh, whoops. How did I do that? Sorry guys, didn't mean to Didn't mean to turn you around there. I don't know what just happened. There we go. Anyways, got the drop shot rigged up, so that's good. Like I said, I always forget to rig all this stuff until the day of, so just trying to get a little more prepared than usual. Sounds good, Mr. Scary. I'll see you later, man. Anyways, guys, like I said, this is kind of like one of those things where I just want you guys to be able to ask me questions while we're hanging out at the boat. And so I want you guys to be able to ask me questions on whatever you want, fishing conditions, what kind of baits I'm throwing, where I'm throwing them, all that kind of stuff. So go ahead and drop some comments down in the chat, and whatever questions you might have about anything bass fishing, Vegas related, Lake Mead related, Lake Mojave related, all that kind of stuff, boat related, tackle related, rod, reels, anything, guys, line, hook size, whatever you got questions about, drop it in the chat, and I'll get back to everyone. So go ahead and keep rigging some rods here, and then we'll keep it moving. So if you guys will bear with me for 1 sec, I haven't had a chance to look at the chat yet, but if you guys will hang out for just a sec here. I'm going to strip some line off of this, and then I'll get to all those questions, if there are any. All right. Let's see what we got. Okay, we got a few questions here. Dave, Old Mount Pontoon. Where can we fish for bass? So, Dave, I would fish slow finesse lures on the bottom if you're fishing for bass tomorrow, and I would stay in like that 20 to 30 foot range and fish those like deeper main lake points. So go to any of the areas that are going to be on the main lake, deep points coming out far into the main lake, 20, 30 feet, fish those smaller finesse baits. Jim, what's up, Jim? Chris? Selection change from season to season? Absolutely, Chris. So one of the biggest things that changes season to season for me for the color selection is my crawdad imitating baits. So depending on the time of year, it's funny. There's a lot of guys, which is actually a smart thing. Depending on the time of year, they'll catch a few bass that they know or they think have been eating on crawdads, and they'll actually stick them in their live well for an hour or two and wait for them to spit up some crawdads so they can see the color and the size. And what that's going to do is allow them to be able to match the color presentation that they're using to the color of the actual crawdads that the bass are feeding on. And so I like to try to at least find some crawdads every couple months throughout the lake and kind of just figure out like what color they are and what size they are, so that way I can kind of match my crawdad color and size to what the actual ones throughout the lake are. Jim, how often do I re-rig rods? So Jim, personally, I will typically re-rig rods. My own one, if I'm fishing out and I'm by myself on a regular day, I'm going to be retying knots and leaders every couple hours, maybe even sooner if I'm fishing heavy stuff. If I'm fishing in a tournament, I'm retying knots and I'm retying leaders probably like every hour, even if I'm not catching fish, just to keep them fresh. And then when I'm with customers, I'll usually once or twice throughout the day, if they're not breaking out, I'll still re-rig them up. So I'm a big fan of retying often. So I know a lot of guys are not going to agree with that, but I'm actually a big fan of retying my knots very often. If any of you guys have been on like a sport fishing boat out of San Diego or like a saltwater fishing boat, all those deckhands are always going to be screaming one thing. They're going to say put fresh bait on and get fresh line on. So same thing works for freshwater. Is if you want fresh bait and you want fresh line. So like I said, if I'm fishing a drop shot for hours and the bait's all torn up and it looks all janky, I'm gonna put a fresh bait on, right? But if I'm fishing, and it's the same thing with the line, right? If I'm fishing for a couple hours, whether I'm catching fish or not, that line's down there, it's getting little nicks, it's getting scratches, it's going over rocks and trees, it's getting all frayed. So I'm gonna retie every couple hours, even if I'm not catching fish, just because I know when I do hook that fish, if that line has any little imperfection, especially with light line, you're gonna be totally screwed and it's gonna snap. So I'm a big believer in retying frequently. Okay, one legit question. Tell me what lure to throw jig related. Honestly, man, jigs are so similar. As long as you buy a name brand jig, whether that's Kitech or you know, Booyah, or if that's Arky, or if that's whatever, right? As long as you buy a name brand jig, Strike King makes some great jigs. Berkeley has good jigs. I would honestly just get a name brand jig, full size jig, and like just one universal, get a 1/2 ounce. So get a 1/2 ounce jig in a natural color. So either get like a green pumpkin, a brown, you know, a brown with a little orange, a full orange, just anything that's going to be the color of a crawdad, kind of those greenish, brownish, orangish colors, 1/2 ounce jig. And I go with a football head. So some variation of either a stand-up or a football head. There's some that make it a stand-up football head. So I'd either get like a brownish green orange 1/2 ounce in a football head. That's for Lake Mead specific, right? If you're gonna, that's for like the one size fits all. Obviously there's crazy little modifications and stuff you can do with it. But if you just want to not think about it, 1/2 ounce natural color jig, football head, you'll be good to go. What's up, Zeke Outdoors? My thoughts on using anchovies. Yeah, Dave, that's the anchovies for sure work well for stripers. You're not really going to catch much bass on them from my experience. You might every once in a while get a largemouth or smallmouth on an anchovy if they're really hungry, but they're more predator fish. The stripers are going to eat the anchovies just because of the smell. Catfish will eat them, but for the most part, the only thing you're going to catch on anchovies is going to be catfish and stripers, which is great if that's what you want to catch. And if you're going to be using anchovies, buy a whole bag, cut them all up into like quarter-sized chunks, right? So for every anchovy, you should be getting 3 to 4 chunks out of it, right? You know, your anchovy's this big, you cut it here, 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 here. So that way all your chunks are just about the size like a chicken nugget, right? And wherever you're going to be fishing, you know, drop anchor, put spot lock on, whatever you're going to do, throw out all around your boat a couple handfuls, just kind of chum in the water, right? That's going to get the fish smelling it in the area. They're going to be able to go up to it. And then just, you know, I wouldn't worry about any kind of downrig, weight, anything like that. Literally just take your line, tie a hook on it, whatever hook you got, 1/0, 2/0, 3/0, number, you know, size 1, 2, 3, whatever. Take whatever size hook that's going to be proportionate to the size of the anchovy, thread it right through the middle, and just throw it out there. Let it sink naturally and slowly, and just watch that line, and I'm sure you're probably, and that's going to work all year round. Watch your line as it's going down, and you'll catch fish for sure. All right, Jason, what is up, man? Thanks for tuning in. Tom, what's up? What knot do you use braid to leader? Dude, that's a perfect question, man. So I see a couple more questions in here. If you guys don't mind, just patience for a sec. I'm actually going to tie up a leader right now, so you guys can literally watch while I do it. So that was perfect timing, Tom. So I'm literally going to go ahead and get my leader line, and I'll show you guys exactly what knot I tie and how I tie it. So press that screen record button on your phone. I'm just kidding. I've actually got from like 2 or 3 months ago a video on my channel about how to tie this knot. So if you guys are interested, check it out. So we are going to be tying the blood knot right now. And so I'm a huge fan of the blood knot. It's what I use for 99% of my connections. And I'll get to why in just a sec. But right now, the way I like to do it is taking your braided line in your left hand. It's probably gonna look like my right hand on the screen because this is reversed. Braided line in the left hand, okay? For this example, we're using 10-pound braided line. And then you're gonna take your fluorocarbon. For this example, we're using 6-pound Sunline FC Sniper. And so what we're gonna do is, so I don't remember who asked this. Was it Tom? Yeah, okay, so Tom, what you're gonna do, super easy knot, okay? It's a little tedious, but it works really well. So you're gonna take braid in the left hand, fluoro in the right hand, cross them over, okay? Now I like to pull it to where I have about 6 to 8 inches of line on either side. So I've got some line over here, and I've got some line over here. So now those lines are crossed, and you got about 6 to 8 inches on both sides. What you're gonna do is wrap the braided line over the fluorocarbon line away from you. So if it's facing like this, I wanna wrap it away from me, not towards me. Wrap the braid over the fluorocarbon away from me 9 times. So watch what I'm doing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you see that? Now we got all those little wraps in there. Now in your left hand, where you originally started that first crossover, take the tag end of the one you just wrapped 9 times and put it through that hole. So you see that hole? I'm gonna put that tag end through. And then go ahead, once you get it through, grab it and pull it tight. That's gonna create that one little cinch knot right there. Now in the same spot that you grabbed it, you're gonna go ahead and grab it again where that knot is, and then wrap, instead of wrapping your braid over the fluorocarbon away from you, you're gonna wrap the fluorocarbon over the braid towards you. So now I'm basically doing the same thing, but just making everything opposite, right? Wrapping that fluorocarbon over the braid in the opposite direction towards me, also 9 times. So I'm doing that right now. 7, 8, 9, boom, there we go. Now where you grabbed it, you're gonna take that tag in just like you did the first time, and the hole is gonna obviously be smaller now, but put it through that little hole that you just made. So it's gonna be kind of hard for you to see it on camera, but I just put it through that same little hole. Pull it tight again. And that's gonna create that little cinch knot over there. Now you just literally take your 2 tag ends and pull them tight. Watch what happens here. I don't know if it's gonna focus or not, but that line is gonna cinch down on itself. See it going there? And boom, there's your knot. It's literally that easy. So it looks complicated while I'm explaining it, but it's really not that hard. And so then I like to pull on my tag ends a little bit just to ensure that there's nothing sloppy going on and that everything is nice and tight. But look at that. There you go. And that's it right there, man. And you can see the reason that I like this knot is because if tied correctly, now I'm not claiming this is the strongest connection knot. I'm sure there's stronger ones out there. For bass fishing though, you don't need something that's gonna hold up to thousands of pounds. You just need it to hold up to the same or more poundage of line you're using, which this knot will do. The reason I like it is once you tie it correctly, not only is that knot tiny, I'm gonna flip the camera on so you can maybe see it a little better. You see how, let me focus on this. You see how tiny that knot is? Look how small that thing is. That knot is, look, I'll put it up against the sky. Look how small that knot is. That knot is so small that you can cast it through the smallest guides on any rod, okay? So number one, it makes a super tiny knot. And number two, you can visually tell with your eyes if you tie the knot correctly. So once you tie it up, the way you're gonna know if you tied it correctly is if the tag ends are facing opposite directions. You see how my tag ends are going opposite directions here? My braid's going down and my fluorocarbon's going up, or vice versa, depending on which way I have it turned. As long as those lines are going in opposite directions perfectly, 180 degrees from each other, that's how you're gonna know you tied the knot correctly, because it's gonna show that you made sure that one loop is going the other way, the other's going the other way, they cinch down on each other, and those split ends are going opposite to one another. So that's why I really like it, because especially for guiding, I need to know, especially in a time like this, in the wintertime when you're not getting a whole lot of bites, with those customers I have out on the boat, you need to capitalize on every bite you get. So you want to ensure that you're not going to have something stupid happen, like a leader not failing. And so I like it because I can always tell every time, and I don't have to second guess whether I tied it correctly or not. As long as those lines are going opposite directions, I know that they're going to be good. And then just take your scissors, snip the tag ends, and your cherry. So it's really that easy. And like I said, if anyone wants to see it again, go back on my channel a couple months. I've got an in-depth video on how to tie it. And look how small that knot is, guys. It's literally so small. You see how small that is? It's such a tiny little knot, but it works so well. And so blood knot, there you go. I think it was Tom who asked that. So there is your blood knot, Tom. Super easy and straightforward. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and tie up my little jig head on here. So like I said, you're probably not gonna be able to remember all that the first time, but if that is a knot that looks like it's interesting to you and something you wanna try out, go back on my channel, maybe, I don't know, 2-3 months ago. And there's a whole in-depth like video. It's like 5 or 6 minutes. Goes nice and slow. And it's super easy to follow along. And so that way, if you go back and watch that video, you're not gonna have to second guess and forget half the things I just said. So go back on my channel if you want to really get it down well. Watch that video, and you'll be good to go. And so that's the one thing. The one downside of that knot is it is one of the longer knots that takes to tie. I mean, it does take a little bit of time compared to some other ones to actually tie up start to finish. There's just a few more steps and a few more things that you could mess up that would possibly make you have to restart. But it's kind of like with everything. You're gonna screw it up a few times, but once you kind of get it down, you don't mess it up anymore. So every once in a while I'll mess it up, but 19 out of 20 times I tie it, I can do it in under 30 seconds, and it works perfect every time. The couple times you'll mess it up is if you accidentally wrap one the wrong direction because you're not paying attention, or if you put it through one of the wrong holes in a different direction. But as long as you remember the steps and do it a couple times, you'll be good to go. It's actually a super easy knot to tie. So enough of that. I'm gonna go ahead and check out some more of these questions. Chris, do I ever go with a Texas rig craw? So Chris, the reason I don't fish Texas rigs a lot is just because it's basically the same presentation you can get on a jig head, except the weight is not sliding up and down your line and it's not weedless. So very rarely I'll fish a Texas rig, but it's usually not a craw. I'll usually fish a Texas rig Senko, something like this. Obviously this Senko is set up on a wacky rig right now, but sometimes I'll take a big Texas rig hook and rig it through a Senko. If I'm fishing in some grass in the fall time, that worked really well up in Greg's Basin, way up on the other side of the lake, up by the Grand Canyon this last fall. In fact, in the Lake Mead Open, the 3-day tournament from Juan Bass, half the fish I caught in that tournament was on a, not wacky rig, but a 5-inch Texas rig green pumpkin Senko. Oh, big surprise, right? Senkos work. Everybody knows that. But the reason, because up there in Greg's Basin in the fall, this specific fall, this is what it's like. I don't know if it's like that every fall. This specific fall, most of those fish were staging up in 5 to 10 feet, and they were on the grass lines on the shore. So up there on it would be the north side shore, so the north shore of Greg's Basin area, side closest to the Grand Canyon, for miles and miles, there was just grass everywhere. It was the coolest thing. I mean, it is not anything like Lake Mead fishing most of the year and in most of the parts of the lake. But for some reason, there is so much grass. There was such an influx of this grass, and it was such a healthy amount of grass. For miles and miles of this shoreline, there was just grass beds so thick that you couldn't even get your bait through it unless you were using like something pretty heavy. And so I'd throw that Senko in there and just kind of let it shimmy down in that grass. All of a sudden your line starts speeding up, or you feel a little tick. And you're using heavy line. You're using like 10 or 12 pound braid or like 10 or 12 pound fluoro just to yank it out of there on like a stiff spinning rod and just yank those fish out. It was a really fun bite, really cool bite. One of the guys I was fishing with who was tuned into one or two of these so far, Larry Lanes, we were up there and just murdered them for like 4 hours straight the third day of the Lake Meet Open. It was a really, really special day. We probably caught 15 or 20 fish in just a couple hours up there, just yanking them out of the grass. It was super cool. It was a really fun day. What's your thoughts on marinating your soft plastic? So I believe you mean like in scent. And so I actually don't really, I mean, there's certain brands like some Berkeley Power Bait or Max Scent stuff that already come kind of pre-marinated in some scent. But aside from that, I really don't like marinate them in any scent. Here and there, I'll apply some like bottled scent or gel, but I really don't use scent that often. I'm not saying it doesn't work, because I have seen the results, and I would say for the most part, scent does work better than no scent on your bait. But I just don't do it a lot. It's messy. It stinks. I'm just not really like a huge fan of it, but certain applications I will use scent, but I don't really marinate my baits in it. Things are tough in South. Yeah, I believe it, man. Things are tough everywhere, man. Things are tough everywhere right now. Mr. Jason. Dave, thank you, my man. Thanks for watching. Life on the line. Why are you at home? Don't like fishing in 6-foot waves? No, I don't like fishing in 6-foot waves, actually. Yeah, it's not something I'm interested in right now. It's blowing really hard today. And you guys have seen me fish in some, not 6-foot waves, but I've been out in some 4 and 5-foot waves. And it gets pretty hairy. So not only do I not want to break all the crap and electronics on my boat, but I also don't want to break myself. So I tend to steer clear most days that are like above 3-footers, just because it just gets dangerous, and you break rods and you break screens and mounts, and it's just a mess. It's just not fun. Let's see here. No problem, Tom. Thank you, Jason. Dave, do I cast and reel A-rigs? Every once in a while I will, depending on the time of year. I don't do it a ton though, just because, yeah, it's just not, one, it wears you out. If you toss and retrieve an A-rig for more than about an hour, your wrist's gonna be sore, your shoulder's gonna be killing you. It's heavy equipment, it's a heavy thing to cast. It beats the crap out of you, but every once in a while you'll get on a bite where you're casting and retrieving A-rigs, but for the most part, I don't do it a ton, right? There was a couple videos from a few months back where I did okay with it for like a week or two stretch, and then that bite kind of just died off. So I haven't done well on A-rigs the last couple, probably 2 months, and I've actually put a decent amount of time with them, and I've gotten like no bites on an A-rig in the last 2 months. So the A-rig bite really shut off. I probably wouldn't recommend using it right now. You might get lucky, but there's just kind of more effective stuff to use right now. Let's see. Yeah, it just gets messy. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, boosting. I don't remember if you're saying it was messy in terms of fishing in terrible weather or in the marinating soft plastics, but they're both true. So whichever one you're referring to, I agree with you on both. Whether you're marinating soft plastics in gross scent or you're fishing in nasty conditions, they both suck. Boosting, do I live in Boulder? Yes, I do live in Boulder City. We are in Boulder City right now. And my home address is, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to say that. No, but yes, I do live in Boulder City. I like Boulder City. It's a cool spot. Nick, what have I been throwing right now? So Nick, I've really been kind of switching it up recently, man. I've been using a lot of bottom baits for the most part. But just recently, actually, last 2 or 3 times I've been out, I've actually caught a couple, not huge, but decent fish. Have been these 2 guys right here. You guys are getting that secret info right now, so keep it on the down low. But these 2 guys right here, jerk baits and underspins. So those 2 guys have actually been working decent for me recently. So I've found those areas in like 25, 30 feet. And if I get like a deeper jerk bait, or if I just kind of roll that underspin nice and slow on the bottom, twitching it here and there, I've actually produced a couple bites from doing that. So by no means is the reaction bite non-existent. I mean, you can definitely get yourself a decent reaction bite if you put the time in behind it. But other than that, mostly Ned rig, drop shot, that kind of stuff has been getting most of my bites. What am I throwing for like a pound? Wait, do you mean like trying to catch 1 pound fish? Or do you mean what pound test I'm using? I'll just answer both. So oh wait, for pond, not pound. What do you be throwing for like a pond? Oh, for a pond. Well, I have found in my years growing up, sneaking and getting kicked out of golf course ponds, that my number 1 bait has been, for a pond, some variation of this guy right here. Senko. Absolutely number 1 pond bait. Whether you rig it wacky rig like this, weightless, whether you rig it wacky rig with a nail weight, this one's actually got a little nail weight in there so it sinks faster. Whether you Texas rig it and make it weedless because there's grass. For some reason, dude, bass in ponds just chew Senkos, okay? I have caught more bass on a Senko than anything else when it comes to pond fishing. Or any kind, it doesn't have to be a Yamamoto Senko, any kind of 5 or 6 inch stick bait. And then probably second to that, if your pond is not full of grass, would be a jerk bait. Jerk baits work really well in ponds. And then probably third below that would be something like a drop shot, right? But if it's, summertime or fall, I would throw a topwater all day at a pond. You can get some really gnarly topwater bites at ponds. A lot of fun to do, and you get some really fun topwater bites at ponds. For some reason, or at least where I'm from in Southern California, those pond bass are aggressive, and so you'll get some nasty topwater bites on ponds because those fish are just built different. Living in a small, controlled environment like that, they're super aggressive. Swim bait works great. Yeah, obviously that. Swim baits, I really like swim baits, whether it's just a standard swim bait or one with a little underspin to give it a little flash. They work great for bass and stripers. Swim baits are fun too because it's like when you hook into a fish, you never know if it's going to be a striper or a bass. So they do catch several different species and they are effective pretty much all throughout the year. Dave, you've been throwing a jig with craw at 30 feet and it doesn't get down to the bottom. What do I need to do to fix it? So Dave, you're just gonna need a heavier weight then. So I would not fish a jig on heavier line than 20-pound test, whether that's braided line or fluorocarbon or monofilament. I'd fish a braid around 15-pound test at most. And you want to make sure that you're giving it enough slack line to get down to the bottom. And I would also increase the weight. So I would to fish that 30-foot zone, the lightest I would go is a 1/2 ounce jig. Okay, I'd probably even go 5/8 or 3/4 ounce for some. So Dave, just throw that heavier jig and fish it on lighter line. And that way you'll get it to the bottom. And what technique? Just the same, man. Just drag it and hop it. Drag it nice and slow, hop it nice and slow. Just like any other jig. Nick. How much would you send me on? Do you mean like how much would a guided trip be? I think that's what you're asking. Tom, how often do your seminars at the shop? So Tom, we do them every Thursday night unless something comes up. So usually we do them every Thursday night. Sometimes some family stuff or something else will get in the way and we are not able to do it. But for the most part, we try to get there every Thursday night. So yeah, we're out there pretty much every Thursday from 6 to 7:30. The actual seminar is from 6:30 to 7:30. And if you want free food, we usually have pizza or hot dogs or something like that. If you want free food, that's at 6. So follow Boulder City Bass Tackle on Instagram and Facebook. That has all the updates for when the seminar is going to be and the shop hours and everything. So follow them on Facebook, and every week we post whether it's happening or not and what time. Nick from Missouri. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you're asking how much a guided trip is, Nick, but I'm not sure. So if you wouldn't mind clarifying. Boost, I'll stop at your shop next time. I hit up Lake Mead. What days are you open? So winter hours are kind of like iffy right now. We're only open a couple days a week right now because obviously it's slower because the water's colder. There's not that much business. I don't remember. I think it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't remember. Don't go on Apple Maps. Go on Google Maps. The hours should be updated. Also follow Boulder City Bass Tackle because they always have the updated hours on there. Jason, bearded guy in the red bass tracker. Actually, I think I've seen you out there before, Jason, now that you say that. I think I've probably seen you out there once or twice, just cruising around, but I'm out there a lot, so today's one of the few days I'm not out there, so yeah, if you see me down there, shout out me. But anyways, guys, got 2 of the 3 rods I got rigged up for customers for the next couple days. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that 3rd one rigged up here while you guys are hanging out. And it's somewhere. Hold tight, guys. I'm gonna be back in literally 15 seconds. I'm gonna grab this rod from the garage. Give me 15 seconds. Okay, I kind of lied. That took like a minute and a half, but I could not find that rod, so I apologize. We're back though. Let's see what we got here. Nick, talking about a lure. Okay. Dave, my dad and I do fish together periodically. We actually just fished together the other week. I think I made a video about it. We fished together the other day too. And we actually were gonna fish the ABA tournament this year, but I'm actually fishing with a different guy, Ron, really good family friend. I'm not fishing with my dad because I wanted to fish it with this other guy this year, and we worked pretty well together as a team. So maybe next year, or my dad and I might actually fish a few local ones this year. I'm not sure yet, but my dad has kind of started to phase out from the tournament stuff. He still does a couple here and there, but he doesn't do a whole lot of them anymore. But, you know, a couple a year, but he's not really into doing it, you know, every other week or whatever. What's your favorite topwater lure? So that's really all gonna depend on time of year and what the fish are like eating on, like what they're chasing. So really, like most of the year, like my go-to is probably be like a walking bait. So some kind of spook, Sammy, that like pencil bait, walking bait, something like that is kind of like my go-to all around. But I like poppers too. Poppers have a time and place. And also, I am a big fan of, what's it called? What am I saying here? I'm a big fan of the, like the subsurface baits. So the baits that are like not quite topwaters, but not quite jerk baits, the kind of in-between ones. But I'd say for like a pond or something, I'd stick with like a popper. If you're more lake, I'd think my go-to would be more of a walking bait. It all depends on what they're eating, right? If they're eating bigger bait, I'll throw that walking bait. If they're on smaller bait, I'll throw a little popper. Frogs are fun too. I never really throw frogs at Lake Mead though, because there's not really any grass or anywhere where it makes sense to throw a frog over something with exposed hooks. The problem with frogs is you just lose so many fish because, I mean, you'll get bites, but it's so hard to get those fish hooked because those hooks are buried. So usually, unless I'm fishing an area where I have to fish a frog, I tend to steer clear from the frogs just because you just lose so many fish. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. Also, if anyone's in the Vegas area and wants to buy a Phoenix Recon Elite spinning rod, 7'2" medium fast action, let me know, because I'm gonna be selling this rod because it's literally just sat in my rod locker for 2 months and I've never used it. So it's literally brand new. I've never even put a reel on it. $209 rod, I'll give you a much better deal than that on it. If anyone's looking for a good spinning rod, let me know. I feel your dad sucks getting older. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, Tom. I mean, I wouldn't say he's like burnt out from it, but it's more just like, you know, he's fished a lot of tournaments in his life. So he's kind of just to the point now where he likes to just go out for fun and not because, you know, there's money or pressure on the line. So, I mean, here and there, he's going to do the Lake Mead Open for sure and like the local stuff, but he might go do Clear Lake in April. But he's definitely not like ramming and jamming, which really I'm not either. I'm not like a huge tournament guy either. Like, I'm not super huge in the tournaments. I'll do them here and there. Like, I'm doing the ABA series this year. So there's actually a tournament next Saturday, 8 days from now, on Lake Mojave, the third one of the year. We actually got a check in the last one. We came like 17th out of 60, something like that. So hoping to go down there and do a little bit better this time. Hopefully place a little bit higher. Top 10 finish would be cool. Winning would be even cooler, 10 grand. But we'll see how we do. So stay tuned for that tournament video. I get really good feedback on the few tournament videos I've done, so I think you guys really enjoy those. So definitely going to be making a video out of it next Saturday down on Mojave. Dave, yeah, Dave, the thing with that is, you know, if you really wanted to get on some bass, I would take 20 or 30 minutes and drive a little bit further up the lake, maybe around Colville or even a little further by the Narrows. A lot of people fish the lower basin and it just gets fished a lot. So if you really want to increase your odds of catching bass, go a little bit further up the lake and kind of away from the crowd. And you'd be surprised how many more fish you catch. This guy is going to need some new line because you can see how empty that spool is. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put some fresh line on this guy. Shimano Ultegra. Put up the tournament schedules when you get them. Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. I could definitely make a post about them for sure. Just so that way everyone's kind of aware of what's going on when. Jim, fishing from a kayak. I knew you were going to ask me that, man. I knew it was going to be one of you guys, one of you kayak guys. It's just, dude, it's so hard, man. I'm spoiled with a bass boat, man. Like, look at what I got here, man. Like, I've got big old 250 on the back. Go wherever I want. I don't want to fish out of a kayak. No, I'm just kidding, man. Kayak fishing is actually really cool. I have a lot of respect for the guys who do it. I genuinely believe it's much harder to fish out of a kayak than a boat, because it is. And you're restricted to where you can go. You're restricted to weather conditions. You can't, you're screwed if it's windy. You're screwed if the weather sucks. You're screwed if you want to go more than a mile or two. It's just tough, man. Kayak fishing is putting yourself at a disadvantage versus a boat. But if you can do it successfully, it's really impressive. So, Jim, I've never been a kayak guy. I grew up on a boat, so it's like backtracking, you know, man. It's tough. So, I mean, maybe in the future, if enough guys want to see it, I would consider it. But it's hard to strap a kayak to the top of my truck when I've got a bass boat in the driveway. You know what I mean? So maybe at some point, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not saying no, but I'm also not saying yes. Life Online, you just got a new 80,000 bass. That's exactly my point, man. It's like I don't know, man. I've already got way too expensive of a boat. So that's why I'm like, man, if I'm going out, I want to do it on my boat, you know. I don't want to do it on a kayak, but maybe. I'm not saying no, but it definitely would not be by choice. I haven't fished out of a kayak in years, man. I haven't fished out of a kayak since high school. I had a couple kayaks in high school that I was never really huge into it then either, because I had a kayak in high school. I was like 15 or 16, and then when I could drive, I bought a John boat, like a little aluminum 16-footer with like a 30 tiller on the back to go go fish the bays in San Diego and go fish the little lakes and stuff. So as soon as I could get out of a kayak, I did, because I just couldn't stand it, man. Because growing up, when I was little, and then 12, 13, 14 years old, I was always on my dad's boat. And then it was like, well, when he couldn't go, I had to take a kayak. And I did not like, honestly, I preferred bank fishing over a kayak. I would usually, if I had to go and I didn't have access to the boat, I would just bank fish or go, sneak onto docks and stuff. Because, man, I just could not get the kayak thing down, man. It's a tough thing to really, like, get down, I never was good with it. I always felt awkward and off balance. I was not a fan of it. And I know some guys live and die and breathe by it, and I'm not knocking on them at all. I actually have a huge respect for guys who kayak fish, because I understand how difficult it can be. But it's just never been my thing, man. As soon as I could get out of the kayak, I got that little aluminum boat and was back to a motor and standing up and not sitting down and paddling. So that's just me, though. Kayak works for some guys. It just doesn't really work with me. And it's not to say I couldn't figure it out. I'm sure if I bought a kayak and put the hours behind it, I could do it. But, I've got this thing. Why would I do that, Anyways, that's a funny thing. All right. All right. Anyways, guys, if anyone's curious about anything, questions about anything, topic of discussion, whatever you guys want, let's do it. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get this last rod rigged here. And that way I will actually be prepared. I like your dad's yeah, my dad's going nuts, dude. Yeah. Fully regret. Yeah, that's actually true. For the longest time, for well over a year growing up in high school and stuff, my dad and I had an old Ranger, like what even was it, like an 8-something VS? I don't remember. It was like one of the late 90s Rangers. Not even late 90s, it was like early 90s Rangers. Those boats are built like tanks though. It was an 18-footer, 18-foot Ranger. I think it was a dual console. Not that it mattered though, because it didn't have an engine. It literally just had an old motor guide trolling motor. No electronics. I mean, we didn't have no rear screen or front screen. Eventually, when I bugged my dad and said, yeah, I want to get a fish finder, we went to Walmart and bought like one of those $99 like Garmin's or Humminbirds or whatever it was. You know those little ones that look like a little GPS? Like they're not even horizontal. Like they look like that. They're on a little stand and they're about the size of like an iPhone. Maybe a little bit bigger than an iPhone. The screen's like that big. And all they say is like your depth and temperature. So that's what we got. And man, that's how I grew up. Like I never had any kind of decent electronics until maybe the last year of high school. And still they weren't great. They were just older Humminbird units. I never grew up fishing with electronics, and I'm so grateful for it too, because so many guys who are getting into the sport now only know how to catch fish by looking at a screen. And I'm gonna sound like an old guy saying that, but it's true. Like that video I did a while back, and I can see why people get the notion why they think I'm someone like that, because I'm a young guy with a nice boat with nice electronics. And so they think, oh, I only know how to catch fish using electronics. But man, up until literally like 18 months ago, I never had more than like a $500 electronic on my boat. And that was just what it was, right? And I'm super grateful that I actually grew up like that, because it taught me how to fish using my intuition and my eyeballs and not looking at a screen, because it taught me to look at the contour of the bank. It taught me to look for things like structure, to look for things like birds, and to actually use my eyes and use my brain to figure out, okay, if I was a bass, this is where I'd be and this is what I'd be doing, and not just staring at a screen all year and not actually understanding fish activity or patterns or anything like that. So now that I do have some nicer higher end electronics, it's funny because half the time I don't even use them or turn them on. So I'm a strong advocate. I'm not one of those guys who's anti-electronics. I think electronics are great. But I would say that if you are new into the sport and you're getting into bass fishing, don't get anything more than $100 or $200 unit. That's just going to give you a basic 2D sonar and your depth and temperature. Because man, you'll learn so much more just figuring it out with your eyes and your intuition than you will looking at a screen. So that way, when you finally grow out of that stage and you do want to get some electronics, that way you don't rely on them. Because the problem is, if you start fishing with electronics and you don't know any different, you're just kind of setting yourself up for failure. Because what happens on the day that your battery's dead, or what happens on the day electronics don't work? Now you're going to be out there and you're not going to know what to do. So seriously, guys, if you're new to the sport or you're just getting into it, I would not even buy a single electronic other than maybe something very basic, just like a GPS with some mapping and some 2D. Don't spend more than $500 and have one. And literally, you will learn so much more just from using your brain and using your intuition to catch those fish than you would staring at a screen. I was actually talking to a guy last night at our seminar about that, who just bought a fully rigged nitro. And I told him, I was like, man, and he was telling me how he's struggling to catch fish on live scope. And my biggest advice to him was, turn it off, dude. Like, and I'm not knocking on the guy at all. I think it's cool that he's got all that stuff, but if you're struggling to catch fish on live scope or with electronics, freaking turn them off, man. I mean, you really don't need them. And so I don't know. That's my 2 cents on it. I'm not trying to sound like Randy Blockett, because I disagree with a lot of the stuff that guys like him say. I'm not anti-technology or improvements at all. I think electronics are great. I think live scope's great if you use it correctly. But I don't think it's how you should learn how to fish from day one. I think you should learn it without electronics before you even introduce them to the whole fishing thing. Once again, just tying up that blood knot for those of you who were here earlier. Great connection knot. Look how small that thing is. Do I ever fish Eagle Valley? I was actually just out on the boat with a couple customers, twice actually. Last week and the week before, I was out on the boat with the same customers, husband and wife. And they liked it so much they booked another trip. So that was cool. But yeah, they go up to Eagle Valley a lot. And they actually have some property up there in a little boat. Never been there, but I've been told from multiple sources that it's a cool spot. So I might have to make a trip up there one of these days. See what all of the talk is about. Anyways, guys, let me know if you guys have any ideas for future videos, future content, future live streams. Anything that related to my channel, just let me know if you guys have any suggestions or if you want to see anything. I love listening to people's feedback and applying it to my videos. So if you guys have any cool suggestions or ideas for anything, go ahead and let me know, because I do try to listen to all the feedback and respond to all the comments. I know I don't get to all of them sometimes, but I love hearing feedback from you guys and ideas from you guys. So if you got any, don't be afraid to let me know. Okay, we got a few comments here. Tom. Yeah, exactly, Tom. That's the thing. I mean, here you go. Look at my console here. I've got 2 screens, which really is unnecessary, to be completely honest. But we got the Lowrance and the Humminbird. The only thing I use this Humminbird for is mapping. I literally don't even have a single cable hooked up to it other than the power cable. I think Humminbird's mapping is incredible, so I use this just for my maps, and I use this just for my sonar. So I'll use this for my side scan and my down scan 2D. And that's it. And then up front, I don't run any other screens aside from one screen up front. I've got one Garmin on that BBT mount, one basic 12-inch screen with a live scope transducer, and that's all I use it for. And sometimes I don't even use it for live. Sometimes I'll put it on down scan. Like sometimes I don't even use the live. So, and that's it. Yeah, Boostin, the blood knot is a really good one for sure. But yeah, the blood knot's a good knot for sure. But it's a cool knot to tie for your connections, absolutely. It's very strong. And check out that video I put out a few months ago. But yeah, I like the blood knot a lot. That's awesome, Boostin. That's really cool, man. Yeah, that's kind of what they were telling me too, is that it's not like they're not like super like big fish. Like most of the fish are not giants. They're just 1 or 2 pounders, but it's perfect for like a kid starting out. So that's really cool. Dave, here's the thing you got to remember, Dave, is lake meat is tough for me right now too. Like, just because you guys will see my videos and see me pulling in these big fish, you know, a 7 or 8 minute video of me pulling in a couple nice fish is 6 hours of fishing edited into the couple minutes of action I got during those 6 hours. And so that's the thing you guys got to remember is if you watch not just my videos, most YouTube videos out there, it's going to look like you're hooking them left and right. But the thing that guys don't realize is there's edits between those fish. And if I catch a 2-pounder here and a 3-pounder there in 2 minutes on the video, there might have been a 3-hour gap between those fish. So that's just kind of what it is, Dave. Like, I've been skunked a couple times last couple months. Lake mead is a tough fishery. And if you're struggling, it usually means everyone else is struggling. So just try to mix it up, man. Throw everything you got, and hopefully you'll get lucky. But December through February is just, it's really tough on lake mead, and that just kind of is what it is. Tom, all right, man. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, buddy. But anyways, yeah, lake mead is just, it's brutal this time of year. It really is. Well, we've got these 3 rods rigged up for my upcoming trips here. So I'm glad I got that out of the way while we're doing this, because I always forget and then I end up scrambling and doing it down the launch ramp right before my customers get there. So we're good to go there. So now I don't really have anything left to do but talk to you guys. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. But anyways, guys, the weather's looking pretty good this weekend. Let me know if anyone's going out this weekend in the Vegas area, if anyone's going to the river, Lake Mojave, Lake Mead, any of that good stuff. Because, man, the next 3 days are supposed to be beautiful. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I think Tuesday looks all right, too. Supposed to be pretty warm and not much wind at all. So really, guys, if you're planning on going out, I would do it in the next 72 hours, because the next few days look really nice for fishing. So I'm planning on hopefully getting out there at least one of those days. And so we'll see. It should be good, though. But yeah. Really, guys, like Dave was saying, this time of year, just because you're doing the right stuff at the right time, in the right place, does not mean that it's going to get you bites. I mean, Lake Mead it'll love you one day, it'll hate you the next. So just because you're doing all the right stuff doesn't mean the fish are going to cooperate. And that's one thing I have to tell people a lot when I'm guiding. People get impatient sometimes, and it's like, hey man, this is fishing. It's what it is. You know, it's fishing, it's not catching. So there's days where it's definitely slower and there's days where it's better. So that's just how it goes. And just because you know what to do and you're doing it in the right place and the right stuff, doesn't mean those fish are going to want to eat it still. I mean, you could literally be doing everything right, but at the end of the day, it's not up to you. It's up to the fish. Boosting. I'm ready to fish this weekend. Don't work. I'll work to fish. Heck yeah, man. Are you in the Vegas area, Boosting? Are you going out to Mead or Mojave? Or where are you at? Also, do you have a boat? Or are you just shore pounding it? Or what are you doing? Dave, yeah, man. That's... Like I said, man, it's going to be a grinder for sure. It's possible you don't get any bites all 3 days. It's possible you kill them all 3 days, or it's possible you do somewhere in between. So, you know, do everything I talked about, and also don't. Do your own thing. Try new areas, try new baits, new techniques. Just give it all a shot, man, and hopefully you will stumble into one that works. And once you find that one that works, stick with it. Gus? Do I have a particular brand of rod or reel? Yes, I absolutely do. So the 2 rod brands that I fish, well, I guess 3 technically, but one of them is the same brand as the reels. And so the 2 brands that I like to fish the most for the rods are going to be Phoenix Rods and Denali Rods. So Denali Rods is a really cool company, back from I think Tennessee, somewhere on the East Coast. We actually picked them up as the only dealer in the entire Western United States, in-store dealer that is. And so if you guys are looking for some really high quality rods, go ahead and pull up to our shop and check out. We literally have like probably over 100 of these Denali rods in different action styles, spinning, bait casting, everything down to small finesse to big swim baits. So here's a really cool one that I just rigged up. I actually use a couple of them for guiding for demo purposes, but this is the Denali Covert. Super cool rods. This one comes in at like $189 or $169, somewhere in there. But the cool thing you'll notice, this rod's got like 15 guides. You see how many guides are on it? And what that does is give you a maximum sensitivity. So their whole thing is lightweight rods with a lot of guides. What their theory is, which I think makes sense and it does work, is the more guides you have to the rod, the more points of contact you have to the rod, and the more sensitive it's going to be. So it makes sense. I like to use them for like some finesse stuff. And then the other brand is going to be Phoenix. So I really like Phoenix rods. This is a Recon Elite, but most of what I fish are the feather or the M1s. So like what I throw my jigs on, my drop shots, finesse, everything. I love these Phoenix feather rods. These are just killer rods, man. I'm a big fan of them. See that right there? I got my jig on that one. I also use the feathers for a lot of my spinning rods. And this one's a really cool one too. This is another Phoenix Recon Elite, like that spinning rod I just had, but this is actually a bait finesse setup. So it's a bait caster, but look how flimsy that rod is. This thing's literally a pool noodle with that little SLX 70 on there. So this is like my little finesse setup. Usually throw like Ned rigs and stuff on that, or little tiny jigs. That's a fun one. And for reels, 100%, the only reels I use, for the exception of maybe one or two every once in a while, is going to be Shimano. Okay, not sponsored, not anything with Shimano, but they have proven their worth and their build quality over the years with me. I have literally never had one fail me. Even the cheaper ones. I mean, you can go cheaper with it. Like I use a lot of these Sedonas for my guiding because they don't break their bank. They're right under $100, but they work great. I also use Ultegras for guiding. These ones are about like $170, so a little bit nicer. And then for my personal stuff, I'll use like the Ultegras too. I've got one or two, and I actually, you know, I'm not stingy about it. If customers want to try, they can try every rod I have in the boat, right? I'm not weird about it. I know some guys are who guide, but whatever I have in the boat is the customers too. So I also like these really cool new Sanfords. So these new Sanford FAs, this is a brand new one, 2025, or maybe it's 2024. I don't know. This is within the last year though. These Sanford A's are really cool. Super lightweight. I've actually got an entire product review video on the Sanford A from like 2 months ago. And just an incredible reel. It comes in at $249, so it is a little bit pricey, but not bad. Haven't even had a hiccup with it. I put probably over 100 hours on that reel. And it's just a super smooth, super lightweight, really cool reel. And same with my bait casters. I mean, I like the Corrado and the Tranx series of bait casters. I usually run either a Tranx or Corrado. So this Tranx 150 is a really cool one for like my heavier stuff. So I like the Tranx 150 on like my jigs and heavier baits because it's got a bigger gearbox that's actually designed for saltwater. So it gives you more torque. But it's about the same size as your Corrado 150. So I really like the Tranx. That one comes in at like $219. So same thing in that $200 range. So they're not cheap, but they're not crazy expensive, right? I mean, Shimano makes reels that are above $1,000. So you can go absolutely insane with it. I don't think you need to. There's guys who run the Stellas and the Accents, and those are anywhere between $600 and $800. I don't think you need to go that crazy with it. I've felt them before. I've felt the really expensive ones. And here's the thing. When you get up above that $200 or $300 price point, something like a Sanford, and you jump to that like $600 or $700, $800 price range, you're not getting, like, if you're increasing the price by 3 times the amount, you're not going to increase the quality by 3 times the amount. That's not how it works. So just because you're paying 3 times the money doesn't mean it's going to be 3 times better. Like, I'll put it this way. That Sanford A that I was just using, that $250 reel, if you jump up to like an Accents, which is like $650, you know, you're going to jump up almost 3 times the price, but you're only going to get 10 or 15% better quality. So in the long run, 10, 15 years from now, sure, that one will probably be holding up better, maybe. But for me, it's not worth spending that much more money. I mean, I just can't do it. I cannot justify anything over like $300 for a reel. I just can't. Like, it's too... I wouldn't say I beat them up because I try to take care of them, but I just put so many hours on them and I use them so much that anything that nice, I would just be afraid to even use. So I like to stay in that $200, $300 range because it's nice enough to where it lasts, but it's not so nice to where if I get a scratch on it, I'm going to cry about it. So it's functionable. Like, that's not a word. It functions well, but it's not so nice that I'm like worried about it. Tim, what's up, man? Boosting, my friend has a boat, but I'll end up shore fishing. Nice, man. Go out there and get some. Gus builds rods right about And you're right. Yeah, so Gus, that's the cool thing. That's why I like those Denali's, because they have so many guides on them. I mean, just like that spinning rod, 6'9" spinning rod, it's got like 15 guides on it. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but when you put it in your hand versus a 6'9" spinning rod that has 6 guides on it, it's so much more sensitive just because there's so much more points of contact going to the rod. You can just feel those little bites a lot better. Let's see. Gunlock. Boosting. I've been to Gunlock. I actually lived in St. George for a period of time, not for super long, but I lived in St. George for a little while. And I've actually never fished Gunlock. I've been by it. I've driven past it multiple times. I've been to like the little state park there, where like the waterfall. Like last spring, my wife and I were there, just to kind of hang out. It was a really cool spot. Actually, one of my good friends like proposed there, and so we were there. It was in like February or March of 2024, so almost a year ago. And like right kind of below the lake, there's like all those waterfalls, and they're super pretty, and that's kind of like where he proposed. And so yeah, I mean, it's a cool spot, but I've never fished it, so I can't tell you, if it's good or not. I mean, I've heard guys say they fish it and they pull some nice ones out of there, but I don't really have much personal experience there. Corrado, yeah. Thinking about driving up, just don't know if it's worth it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. If you're itching to put some miles on the car and just want to get out from Vegas and try a new spot, just, why not, man? If you got the time and the money and you can do it. I mean, whether you catch fish or not, it's always fun to go on a little car ride, go on a little adventure to a new spot. You don't fish a ton, so your call. But I always like to get out and try new areas. I mean, even like if it's on the same Lake Mead, I don't go out every time and fish the same spots every time. Almost every time I go out, I at least try 1 or 2 new areas and new baits and stuff, because it just gets repetitive and boring if you just keep doing the same thing. So I always like to try new areas, new spots, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of my take on it. So guys, I don't know how much longer we're going to be rolling on the stream. We've already been almost an hour and a half, so probably not too much longer. I've got to go eat some lunch because I'm pretty hungry. But a few more minutes and then we'll probably wrap it up here shortly. So like I said, last stream, it literally like at the 50-minute mark or 45 minutes, like my phone just froze and YouTube just like shut me out and I couldn't get back on it. It was really weird. So that's kind of what happened there. But anyways, guys, Gus, you're out of here. All right, man. We will see you next time. Take care, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, man. Thanks for tuning in, man. I'm happy to answer any questions you got. And yeah, that'll be cool if you stop by. For sure, man. Just, yeah, look on Google for the hours, and because I know they're not like a ton right now. So, or just, send me a text or whatever. Send me an email and we can line it up. But yeah, if you ever want to go to the shop, I'd be happy to open it up. Any crappies in Echo? So there's actually been a lot of guys catching big crappie up at Echo Bay recently. I haven't been up there and done it personally, but I know it's kind of hitting right now. It might not be as good, but the other week, the guy who pulled like 90 crappie out of there is insane. So if you guys want to do crappie fishing, it's on right now at Echo Bay. So, like I was explaining to that other guy earlier, I'm just not much of a crappie fisherman. I don't do it a ton. So, it's not that I don't think it's cool. I think it's super cool. I think a lot of guys are into it. It's never really been my thing, though. I'm more of a bass fisherman, so. But, like I said, if there's something you guys want to see or a video idea, I would be more than down to try new things on the channel, make new videos about stuff, different species. So if it's something enough guys want to see, then by all means. Smallmouth, your favorite catch? Yeah, man, honestly, it's like a tough debate for me between largemouth and smallmouth, because on the one hand, I feel like smallmouth fight harder and they're more difficult fish to get to the boat once you hook them. But I feel like largemouth bass are a little bit smarter. Just in general, right? That's not to say every single fish is going to be smarter, largemouth over smallmouth. But from my experience, it seems like the largemouth are a little bit smarter than the smallmouth. They're a little more wary of what they're going to bite. They're a little more cautious. I feel like the smallmouth are a lot more aggressive, and because of that, you can catch them easier because you don't have to have quite as perfect of a presentation because they're more aggressive. They're just going to kind of react and just go after something. But largemouth seem to be a little bit... I mean, yeah, largemouth don't fight as hard, but they're a little smarter. Smallmouth fight harder. Smallmouth are harder to get to the boat once you hook them, but I feel like it's easier to get that bite, if that makes sense. So it's harder to get the bite with largemouth, but easier to catch them. But smallies, I feel like it's usually a little easier to get them to bite, but they are harder to get to the boat because they pull and they jump way harder than the largemouth typically do. Caught a halibut once, nice. Yeah, let's see, man. Caught a 2-pound smallie the other day. He wasn't looking too hot. Yeah, yeah, smallmouth are just beautiful. Yeah, they really are, man. Smallmouth are pretty fish. It's really amazing to see how they blend into their environment on Lake Mead too. They're really good at like camouflaging themselves. I mean, even during the spawn that's coming up soon, when you're bed fishing for them, it's crazy how much they just blend into their environment and how camouflaged they can be, especially on Lake Mead. Smallmouth are just, there's something about smallmouth, man. They're just cool fish. It's hard to describe, but those of you who know, you'll know what I'm saying. But there's just something about smallmouth over largemouth. They're just neat fish. There's something cool about them for sure. They're cool fish. I just love how aggressive the smallmouth are. There's something cool about, I mean, you can get on some nasty smallmouth topwater bites in the fall. Smallmouth will just come unhinged for topwater if you get it in the right time. They're like a freshwater calico bass. That's a very good analogy. Same thing like a freshwater spotted bay bass. That's really what smallmouth are. They're just a mean, angry, aggressive fish. And there's just something cool about them, man. Smallmouth do some cool little bass dances. Yes, they do. They turn into acrobats for sure. But yeah, comment down below what you guys, I know I heard from that one guy, Boostin, he likes smallies, but comment down below, smallmouth versus largemouth, which one would you guys rather catch? Honestly, I don't think I could pick one. I like them both. Because the way you fish for them is just completely different. I mean, sometimes it can be the same, but for the most part, the way you target a smallmouth over a largemouth is usually completely different. So I don't know if I could ever pick between the two, if I could only ever catch one one of the two species. But honestly, I'd probably go smallmouth though. A lot of people would disagree with me on that, but the reason I would pick the smallmouth probably over the largemouth if I could only fish for one again is because the way that smallmouth act and behave and the areas that they sit in are similar to the way that I like to fish. So I don't really like fishing in those dirty areas with lots of nasty cover, wood. Because the thing is with largemouth is the largemouth are always going to be in those more rugged areas. So, you know, if you've got a lake like Lake Mead, the smallmouth are going to be in the deep, clear water with rocks and not a whole lot of crap and garbage around. The largemouth typically are going to be in the shallower areas with more trees, more grass, more literal trash. And they're just more of like the ambush type fish, and they're going to be in those cover areas. Whereas the smallmouth are more like the open water fish, the main lake points, deeper, clearer water with less crap in the water, right? And I've always liked, fishing in the deeper, clearer water. I've always liked the finesse fishing with light line, catching those fish deep, on that rocky main lake stuff. Not to say I don't like fishing in the shallower water and cover and stuff like the largemouth are usually at, but I typically prefer fishing in that deeper, more offshore type stuff than like up in the garbage, for the largemouth. So that's my personal opinion. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, including my dad, because I know for sure my dad would rather fish for the largemouth in the shallower water with all the crap. But I'm more of that open, deep water, finesse type fishing. Yeah, boosting there. Especially if you stick them in the live well for a minute. When you catch a smallmouth and you stick them in your live well, their colors will get all flared up, and they'll get all those spots, and I don't know, man. Like, it's hard to explain, but there's just something special about smallmouth, especially big smallmouth. There's just something special about it, man. They're just cool fish. Yeah, see, there's my dad commenting, 100% largemouth. See, I don't know. That's not to say I don't like fishing for largemouth. I do. It's just if I could only do one, it'd probably be smallmouth. They fight harder. They're more in kind of the areas that I like to fish over the largemouth. And you get some vicious topwater bites with smallmouth. You do with largemouth too, but it seems like the smallmouth just come absolutely unglued on the topwater bites. Whereas the largemouth, the largemouth will go nuts sometimes, but it just seems like the smallmouth they just go unhinged for topwater lures. Don't sleep on puffer. Bro, what? Yeah, I like pulling them out of the jungle. See, that's the thing with largemouth. See, my dad is the kind of guy who he likes to fish with the heavier line and fish like in the crap back in a cove, right? Where you have to kind of like horse the fish out. I am definitely more of the guy who's gonna have like a little lightweight spinning rod on and 5 or 6 pound test, nice and light line, fishing for those bigger smallmouth in that cleaner, deeper water. That's just kind of what I like, right? And even growing up in SoCal, fishing those lakes with a lot of the cover, I would still tend to fish for those deeper bass in 30, 35 feet, kind of off the edges of where those tree lines are. So I've always liked the deep water access and the cleaner water. It's just the way I like to fish. Plus, for guiding, it makes it a lot easier with inexperienced customers because it takes a lot of skill to be able to catch and target largemouth effectively. And if the skill level isn't there with a customer, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So you have to go after those offshore smallmouth. Because the thing, if you're fishing for largemouth in cover areas and there's a lot of stuff to get snagged on, you're fishing close to the bank, it's just a nightmare with someone who's not as experienced. You can make it work, and I have, but if the person doesn't care, typically you're going to catch more fish going after the smallmouth in those open areas where there's less for them to snag on. They don't have to worry as much about, casting in the wrong direction. And so, yeah, for guiding, definitely the smallmouth is a good way to go too. If I would troll tomorrow, Dave, I've never been a trolling fisherman. Never in my life have I really trolled for bass. I know guys do it. I know it's possible. But this time of year, it's probably not going to be very effective unless you're going to catch stripers. But for bass, the bass right now are going to be right on the bottom, and they're going to be lazy and slow. So I don't think trolling a lure past their face is going to be the most effective way to do it. It might work, but I'm not really the guy who's going to give you the right suggestions on that. Just because I don't have a ton of experience with it, and I don't really do it myself. So if it was me, I wouldn't troll. That's not to say don't. I mean, you might go kill them trolling, I don't know. But if it was me, I would probably do more of the cast and retrieve type stuff. But then again, if you just wanted to catch anything, trolling would definitely work for the stripers. So maybe if you're going to do the trolling, go in like the back of the Vegas wash, put some 10, 15 footers on, right around 4 or 5 miles an hour, and you'll probably catch a few stripers. But that's not legal advice, so if it doesn't work, you can't sue me. But anyways, guys, a couple more minutes here. Coming up on 2 o'clock. And I'm going to need to get some lunch in me. I'm getting pretty hungry. So a few more minutes here, and we're probably going to wrap things up. So if you guys got any more questions, drop them down now. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes here. Drop those questions down, and if we don't get any, we're probably going to sign off. But I really appreciate you guys coming along again. Like I said, in the future, we're definitely going to plan these live streams out better to where we get more people. It's possible to get more people to tune in. So appreciate the faithful few who are on here right now, though. You guys are the real ones, the real supporters, and I really appreciate it. So any other questions, let me know. But aside from that, we're probably going to pull the plug here in just a minute. So once again, drop those questions in if you guys got any more. And if not, we're probably going to bounce here. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and call it there, guys. Appreciate you always coming along. If you got any more questions, drop them in right now, or else we are going to peace out of here. So appreciate you guys always coming along and watching. Appreciate you guys supporting the channel, those of you watching the long form videos, the shorts, all that kind of good stuff. Hitting that subscribe button, liking, it really means a lot to me, guys. The channel is growing at a great pace right now. We're almost at 1,200 subscribers, and we just hit 1,000 subscribers. So we're really growing at a good pace right now. We've got like 200 subscribers almost in like 2 weeks. So really happy with that, guys. I appreciate you always coming along and supporting. We're going to go ahead and head out. See you later, Boostin. I got the peace sign. Later, man. Appreciate you guys always coming along. My name is Noah Sanford, and as always, we will see you guys